Just explanation of what we're about to talk about. Really, two times within plants at least that you might want to register a structurally diverse substance. One is when you're registering a part for an existing organic source material. Something like you've already registered a oak tree, whole oak tree, but you're trying to register the plant, the leaf, for instance, of an oak tree. And the second one is if you have tried to register some new source material like an oak tree. So first of all, students about previous session. What was that? Like something what do you call it? Functionally indistinguishable from an oak tree. What is an oak tree?
There's nobody there to see the oak tree. That's actually a surprisingly relevant question. What is an oak tree? So the answer, unlike the other substance classes, I should say up front, the other substance classes are based very tightly on subjective, scientific, measurable information. The structurally diverse is still based on a terminology system, on using taxonomic classifications that are just accepted by some authority source. So actually, online we have a few of our colleagues from Q. I think it's Bob is or on the line.
Hi.
Okay. So one of the threats that we have going forward is actually to say that for defining what a new source material is, what an oak tree is, we defer to some expert organization on that class of organisms. So it comes to plants, which is the majority of structurally diverse substances. Authority will be the Kew Garden experts.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, I think, and again, in a different way, we consider taxonomic information, which is going to be one of the primary defining features of the structurally diverse class, to be a controlled vocabulary in a sense. So we're going to offload, the maintenance of that terminology to an authoritative source. So for taxonomic plant information, we're going to use Kew Garden. But then for other parts of the controlled vocabulary that we've already kind of stumbled through in protein, in nucleic acids, in chemicals, we want to link up with an authoritative controlled vocabulary to support each part of the substance class.
That's right.
We're very happy that Kew Garden has stepped forward to try to help us out with the taxonomic information plan.
Plants are not all the kingdoms of organisms.
That's right. So there are plenty of other things beyond plants that we also are capturing. There are, in mineral products, there are things that can range from spiders to algae to, dog.
Actually, we've had interact with Smithsonian a lot of that. The FDA has done a lot of that work related to their barcode project.
Yeah, so Frank, if you could make just a comment about is there objective characterization of an organism at this point, or is it still sort of a manually curated error assessment?
It's in the process of integrating all the genetics, and it's not fully complete. So it's always been morphology of the organism, which part has samples of lots and lots of plants. That helps a lot. The Smithsonian has samples of just about everything else. So,
might I respond to that?
Absolutely.
the classification of the plants that we're presenting is that being not just by the botanists here at Kew, but by the network of taxonomic experts around the world that help support our global plant taxonomies. And those are based on the best evidence that is available to date for those plants, and that will include molecular, chemical, and any other sort of data that is available. In some instances, the decisions will be based upon probably morphological data, but in the majority of cases today, there is a molecular and chemical information behind it. But our purpose is really to gather that expertise from around the world and present it as an up-to-date classification and present that and enable that to be available as an ontology for you guys. I think the point is, of course, that it is changing all the time, and so we are in the process of putting mechanisms in place to make sure that we reflect those changes as understanding and more data becomes available. So those taxonomic decisions will be updated.
The procedures that Q and others have used in order to differentiate between organisms, it might go down to genetics and sometimes to chemical constituents and so on. In other substance classes in GINAS and in ISO 11238, we mount to some of those details and capture them in the system. And it's the decision for why an organism is a specific organism to the chemical level or genetic level. It's not in our system. We just trust that the person made the correct decision and then import their terminology.
There is a part of the controlled vocabularies which is supported in the implementation guide, of course, is for plant parts, and that is more static. And we arrived by Liz Dauncey, that's sitting here alongside me, but also with them and other colleagues around. So that is intended to be a static vocabulary and not to change over time, I gather.
The part vocabulary are not meant to be.
No, so referring specifically to the parts of the plants, which is a separate terminological control in a sense. Which parts of the plant?
Okay. So to move forward on to just some kind of general walkthrough, we'll go back to the system to insert something. Okay. Log in. A structurally diverse material. Individual names can be added for many of the herbal substances and for just general structurally diverse substances. There may be names, and you can include this, some binomials, and scientific names in general, as well as common names and so on. In this case, I'll just add a very simple plant. Sounds like a good comment. So very often dealing with plants and specific terminologies there. These names are very, very strong kind of definitional status. In our system, names are never given definitional status; they're just informative. But now they'll take them seriously when you like to put in many that are relevant. So then the screen that you'll see next, the screen is dealing with what the source material is for the material put in. This is demonstrating that there is actually a difference between a new source material and an existing source material. As I said before, registering an oak tree, a full oak tree, is different than registering a leaf of oak tree. If I have a full oak tree as a new source material, I have to have some expert knowledge about this, referencing an expert system. If I'm in an existing oak tree, I just and a certain part of it, I would just select that oak tree, the rest of that, and then qualify that it's a certain part. At this moment, the way that we are doing this is that only administrative users can register new source material. It's considered to be sort of like a control vocabulary function, even though these still get a substance record. Only admin users, of which I am, an admin user, that are new source material. Everyone will have to do it. Will have to select existing source material in order to register a plant or diverse. So I'll first what it would be like for an existing record. Existing record, one must select the parent substance. If you click on substance icon, the record for that parent organism. As of right now, the structure search and name search are probably not completely sufficient to find exactly what you're looking for. We'll be adding a third tab for taxonomic browsing, but at this moment it's just a name search. So if I looked for something like here, the oak moss record. This is a whole record, and we'll import the economic information down below, along with what the material class and material type is. So this, in this case, is a fungus. Yeah. So at this point, it's just there. Yeah. So actually, at this point, that's important. At this point, the ones that are being shown visibly are only the family, genus, and species. But there are additional fields that are hidden behind. But there's some question as to the relevance of some higher taxons and to the accuracy of some of the higher taxons. So as it evolves, and we decide actually a better place in this suborder and so on.
Well, there's still so much disagreement about even how you structure this.
And actually, Bob or Liz could speak to that. I believe that the organization of family, genus, and species tends to be a little bit more consistent and a little bit more static than the above taxons. Is that correct?
Families are fairly consistent now, and they tend to be changed in or go as they change the family trees. But above that, there can be discrepancies about the different classes of these. So we really bother with them much. I don't think, from my point of view, they're not very useful.
So practical point of view for you guys, it's really just the binomial that you consider to be the most important.
Well, yeah, but the family's useful, but above, not really.
And I mean, even to further off, we had a couple of really nice presentations on naming with regard to plants in terms of genus, species, author, right? Is the required element of the name as far as right? And I think the point I was trying to make earlier in the difference between the name and the actual tab we're now, which is the source material tab. It's just the names as used in commerce can be fairly ambiguous, and we want to capture those. And so we do allow names to be ended even if they are ambiguous. But behind the scenes in the source material tab, we really are trying to resolve it down to a fairly precise definition as supported by something like Q. Genus, species, author for most plants.
And then you break, and then use family
Tyler, can I just step in there? So I think the binomial with the author is necessary to identify the organism, and there may be multiple scientific specific names that refer to the same organism, which Q and the global taxonomists that support us have been tracking traditionally and we have available to us. But the medicinal plant name services that Frank has referred to, of course, we are endeavouring to link in the maps to the common names and the pharmacopoeia names and those other names which are being used within your community, so that you're able to use the common names and link to the right plant. So in answer to your earlier question, the binomial is the key and the only necessary piece of information, in a sense, to identify the organism which is involved, the biological organism. The genus to which it belongs gives you some further information, would be useful should you be looking at alternative plants that might have similar chemicals. And then if you were to go above the genus up to a taxonomic level above that, you can start inferring the potential or possibilities, and those are reasons you might be looking at the taxonomy. But otherwise, it's simply an organizational device, and for the purpose of tying regulation to a particular plant, it's only the binomial or the author that you need.
That's a very good point. So actually, to me, it sort of seems analogous. We might have classification systems that are associated with chemicals or certain drugs like the declassification codes and so on. Those are to be definitional. Those are just kind of higher ordering organizational things. And I think everything is maybe true of the orders in the taxonomy. So as you were talking, I've noticed actually that the author information is hidden in this part. You put it as a reference and it's not screen, which is an important thing to have shown as well. I'll continue for a second to explain that an administrative user, if you're a typical editor, you can start from an existing source material, habitual taxonomic, the taxonomic information of that source material, but you won't be able to add any of those source fields. Those will be just be static. As an end user, you can first qualify some of these source materials to say something a little bit more specific, or to say that something has changed slightly of that. This is in general not encouraged, but it's possible, and in some cases it may be necessary. The part to be able to do is just to qualify what actual parts of that given organism are. So right now this is a very, very large part list. It's not yet filtered down by the material class. In the future, it'll be a little bit easier to navigate because this right now is showing every single part. But one would select a part or many parts for an organism that is represented. Also go along and specify what the location of the part is, as well as the developmental stage of the organism is, and also qualify what fraction of the part. This is something like some oil extracts of the leaves of a tree or something like that.
More specific outcomes, or is there any other
So in this case, actually, I've actually chosen a fungus to begin with. So you could do this for anything that's an organism. Yeah. I'll say that Frank, you could probably give us some numbers on that, but I think but in terms of diverse, the substances, plants are the majority of these.
Yeah, with okay.
Sure.
There's about 1,300 species of crustaceans and mollusks and fish in there too. So, from the
how many have Frank is our species today? I don't know.
it's 10,000.
They have 1,000. And how many of them do we have, do you think? Or?
We have about we all 3,000.
Yeah, I don't know. What they is that they would, you probably mentioned, I missed it, but they would maintain at least the plant and fungal.
Yeah, that's right. The thing I'd also mention is that there are certainly more than there are pouches, there are hair, dog hair, cat hair, things like that. And it at first might seem shocking. This is because mostly for organic extract reasons that these are used in those products.
Japanese.
That's
true too.
Group, but
But we have incorporated pharmacopoeia, Japanese pharmacopoeia, continue to build that data. And the homeopathic pharmacopoeia of the U.S. and soon, I guess, the German homeopathic pharmacopoeia, which we published version of.
earlier, that substance is like, so for structural verse, we don't go into actual steps for how
So that is correct. I mean, like ordinarily how it's made.
Like if you were going to,
you would not run.
No. So at the substance level, of course, ISO standard. At the substance level, processing how you made something is not distinguished what it is at a substance level. At a specified substance level, there may be qualifications there. Start talking about things. I think group 3 actually where that can be a little bit specified. Is something that's being trying to capture the impurity. And in group 1, there's a bit of that for certain extracts and so on.
The older brown spots and extract are specified section in group 1. And it's very specific. You have to read the annex for it.
so the default in the substance would be that fresh leaf that's harvested. Okay. Whereas once that leaf has been dried, it's not a lot of water that's important, but the fact that it's had a chance to oxidize and lose some of the chemicals. And so that dry is a separate concept that needs to be captured at the specified substance level. And then dry powder is further oxidation. So, yeah.
Particularly for herbal extracts, then a lot of the processing, it actually becomes definitional for the substance itself. It's dry.
You can't quantify how much oxidation is associated with the dry process, but you know the chemical changes are happening, and volume being lost.
And to kind of get into that, the mechanism that you can use for some of this, I should just get a little bit more further, is that as a administrative user, you can qualify what you have beyond it's usually the species level, the genus species level tends to be the level where the cutoff is for a whole organism record. There are cases where a subspecies or strain or some sort of infra-specific taxon is necessary to completely characterize a substance. I don't know if Frank has some.
That's microorganisms.
Microorganisms, that's right. So like strains of a virus or something like that.
And viruses typically only have 7 levels or
They have 6 undefined levels. 5 more levels are not really.
Right.
You have a family.
Yeah. So for instance, if this were a morphic type, you could choose what we call that infra-specific type. It's a variety or a substrain or a strain, and also what name you give to this. What the name of the taxon is. You can also specify hybrid organisms. So you can specify the source maternal organism and the source paternal organism to fully qualify. Yeah, exactly. That's right. So mules and ligers and tions. I guess it'll also be in there. So I think if you're doing a new organism, it defaults to a whole organism. That's what an admin is putting in, is a whole record for whatever they've specified. They're not going to put in any additional part information unless they override it, which we don't encourage, but there are certain times when they need to be able to specify that further.
Question. Now to change that and to add a strain or a type of strain, you have to have admin rights.
At this moment, you do. We could say that you could that the infra-specific elements, we could make it so that people could do morally.
Yeah.
But for any economic information, say needs to be at some sort of administrative control vocabulary level. I don't know if Frank or Larry want to.
Well, a lot of the problem with something like the viruses is that the strings that are used are so unstandardized. Okay, so add a dash, add a slash, and not knowing, it's very hard to map it against the old thing. So,
Always, I mean, serotypes, there's strain. The nomenclature, but we handle all of that like it's subspecies information, basically, and
could be
intra-specific.
infra-specific.
But could we leave it for this time for herbals as it is, and when we make for the virus?
Well, that's the next implementation guide. So we'll talk.
Yeah.
So for the most part, most of the structurally diverse will fall into something mostly fully defined by the fields that are here. For some, you talk about organisms, but there actually is that are also possible. Like oil and things can also be described this way. The organism taxonomic information is no longer relevant for those, but you can still specify what the fragile material is for those.
So now it's basically properties that are really defining what of the source it becomes.
For those cases, we would have to enter in under the properties tab in the review screen in additional physical properties that are used to define whatever that material is. There are structurally diverse records where the agent or physical modification is appropriate in order to define what that change, what the species, what the substance is. There are also actually times where structural modifications are still appropriate. It's just like with the nucleic acids and amino acids, where you can have something extremely site-specific. It doesn't make quite as much sense to have a site-specific modification of a plant unless find the exact locus where something's been modified.
Yeah, for vaccines, we capture whatever the agent was, and if you inactivate it with a different agent, it would be a different substance at the substance level. For full modification, we would capture if it was UV inactivated, if it was heat inactivated, and again, how distinguish them isn't also a bright line. We have to look at how they did it.
So these properties are only visible now at admin.
The properties and modifications anybody can do, but the ones above, the taxonomic information that's up above here, that is only admin users who are able to do this currently.
A new organism would require admin.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe the infra-specific one, we may allow that.
Yeah, that's
We have to, we have to work on that, whether we would allow anybody to enter new species, but since the infra-specific stuff, a lot of times there isn't the sort of official taxonomy there.
Yeah.
That,
Like for influenza, what we've done is group things in terms of their types. Okay, and each record the extra strain information, and back to H1N1.
yeah, that's more classification. Family.
Are there any if there are no other questions on the structure diversity, I should just mention very quickly that the for these are inside of the administrative layout. The properties are defined here, and they can new properties and can be added and modified. That might become defined. There are the global vocabulary terminologies in the main tab, where you'll be able to see, for instance, what the possible plant parts are, and then so on. You could add a term to say there's a new term there. The current for this at the first this is the domain for that controlled vocabulary. This is the key for that, and this is the display value. For relation, this display value could be changed to be what language you prefer for that term. So at current the shift width is only ever showing the English terminology, but these can be translated into any language. And as long as those first two columns remain the same, it's only the third column that would be translated.
Very soon.
For the homeopathic, I believe they use it very often. Yes.
Next, we have vocabulary sources.
So as right now, we just have a static shift vocabulary that's included there, the one that you saw. The plan is that we're discussing with Q and with others to have some rigorous import that they would control, and there'd just be some ID associated with that. It's kind of a per case basis, depending which CV you're talking about. But
yeah, we may not capture all their terminology. If you find a species you're searching, when you're in eBay, then you go over to Q and see if they have it. If they don't have it, then you should deal with them first before you deal with us. Particularly, and I don't know if Bob is on the line. I don't know if he was able to get on the line, or we were supposed to send him an email. We didn't. Yeah, do you want to say anything about it, Bob? Well, I will try to communicate with
I'm not entirely sure I understood the question. So we're hearing Tyler loud and clear, but I'm having difficulty hearing some of the discussion around the table. But I understand it, yeah, in terms of new plants that are not yet, or new, there will be names and there are potentially new plants to be added into the controlled vocabulary. And we haven't yet worked out the details with the guys in Washington as to how that would precisely work, but either through a link through the GINAS system or through a link to our own resources, a query would be made and that name would be validated. Is it a real scientific name that's been published and is meaningful? And if it is, then what would be the currently accepted scientific name for that plant, and what anything else that we had available for it would be made available. But as to how that might work and interact with is going to be discussed. I'm coming across to Washington with our developer over the next month or so. So I don't know to what extent Tyler or has a clearer view about that, but I don't at the moment.
So we're exploring a few options on the best way to sync up the resources. Ideally, what we don't want to have happen is we don't want to have their entire economy and all their general control vocabulary always with this system or anything like that. We don't want to make things so asynchronous. It would be difficult to completely maintain.
And then additional information at the NCATS. We can clearly have which answer and which pharmacopoeia is. It's a very rich data set, and we'll take part of it that we need for registration over and maybe other stuff. But again, we would encourage people to go there too and use.
If I might just add, there may be in some instances if one wishes to add a new plant to the system, it may well be that we have a very reliable, up-to-date taxonomy for that plant available to us and worked on in our current systems, and that would be straightforward, and we could provide that information. It is possible, however, that such a query would come up, and it would be something which we have is still work in progress, of which we only may not be the, as we refer to 3-star and 2-star and 1-star reliability of the taxonomies, and if it was a 3-star, then it would be a possibility. It would be a piece of work to do for the taxonomists here and their collaborators around the world to review that plant and just validate that is the most, that's what is the current view of its taxonomy a bit more objectively. So 370 to 400,000 species of plants to worry about. That's it's not the case that we're consistently high level across the piece. So depending on what new plant to be added to your system, that may be needed. And what we were doing within the Medicinal Plant Name Services project is to concentrate our efforts on those that are already used within your system, used by your community.
Any other questions?
There is the intent as well, Bob, that you look at the things that use allergen extracts that go beyond just things that are properties, right? You hear that?
So I couldn't hear that. Was that Frank in the background?
You said that you was wondering if there's plans to go beyond allergenic extracts.
What is going through allergenic extracts?
Things that are not just in pharmacopoeia.
Yeah. So Frank's question was, there are plans for you to extend beyond
Yes.
pharmacopoeia, right?
Yes, it's work in progress. I mean, every month we're adding new records, and as we've prioritized taxonomy of some groups, and yes, of course, both. But at a number of different levels. The Medicinal Plant Name Services project, the one which we work on, we encourage our taxonomist collaborators to concentrate on those plants of most use to you, as I said, so that they are all 3-star, highly reliable taxonomy. But for other purposes, and for more botanical or ecological or conservation purposes and so forth, systematic purposes indeed, there's a lot of work going on in other families and so forth, as with the institution and within the collaborative projects that we work in. So it's the names of these plants are constantly changing, and I think that's one thing that needs to be clear to the communities. That every the figure I've quoted before, there are 10,000 changes to names of higher plants published every year. And that includes new species, it includes names that have been previously in synonymy are no longer considered to be in synonymy, or vice versa, or it means maybe just moving a plant from one genus to another to better reflect its molecular biology. But the move from one genus to another, because of the binomial system, requires a change in what is the most current accepted name, although the old name would still be there as a synonym. And so if you want to reflect those changes, then you need to be linking to our databases. It's not just a download and then you got it. It will need to be and that's what we're working with Tyler and colleagues.
I want to ask Bob, do you guys consider the allergenic extracts to be medicinal plants?
They did previously, Tyler, but they will in the future.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I'm sorry again, I missed that. What do we do? What? Sorry.
Do you consider the allergenic extracts to be medicinal plants?
Energetic. See, allergenic. No, we view our role as being the source of the taxonomic authority and linking the various names that are used within the pharmacopoeia, within the major medical references such as US Herbs or Commonest and so forth. So we've got, and we have currently sort of 13,000 species of plant included in there, of which maybe 6,000 are of primary use within your community. What we don't do is gather the use in information or recommend that, because that's not within our area of expertise. What we're doing is pointing to other sources of such information. They may be monographs, so forth, but it's not information which we capture. Capturing the part of the plant, the form in which it is traded, but not allergens specifically, no.
And one other question that I had was, I know that you talked previously about an identifier that would stick with a species. Was there plans to have such a thing? Is that fixed yet, or is it still in progress?
No, we're halfway there, I think, is the answer. We have identifiers which are considered persistent and therefore of most use for your purposes, which are associated with scientific binomial names. So each scientific binomial name would have a persistent identifier which we intend supplying to you. We have not yet moved on to a new architecture where individual plant concept has a unique plant identifier which is also persistent. We have such identifiers, but they're not persistent and therefore not really of use to you in the longer term. So our intention is for the moment to share the name identifiers which are persistent, but they themselves will, that's, in a sense, that is sufficient, because through that name you can then will be able to point in the future to the plant and all of the other associated names and other data that we hold or to which we can point. That's very much that remains part of our plans, and GU is one of the major collaborators in a new initiative within the botanical community worldwide. It's called the World Flora Line with Missouri Botanical Garden and others, and we're working in close with them, and we're sharing the architecture that they use to support that, so that the plant name index, if you like, underlying all of this should be the same thing. This is the point where the medicinal plant names portal gives you access to. It's not a taxonomic index for your purposes. It's the one which the botanical community worldwide is building for many other purposes and maintaining it. I think that's why you can be confident that it will go forward, because it's an institutional commitment and interest that this be maintained.